And I kept talking about the company, the brand. And then I kind of made that realization, especially after the work with you, like it's you. It's not the company. It's not the brand. You built that. You can go do that anywhere you want to now. You can go take that and go do that anywhere.
Hello and welcome to Working Your Way, the podcast dedicated to exploring the journey of authenticity in the workplace and discovering how to navigate it your way. I'm your host, Sandhya Sudhakar, and today I am joined by Gillian Cabanski. She is the VP of Marketing and Customer Education at orthobrain, which is a company that offers orthodontic capability to dental offices and to really help them expand and create more holistic solutions for their patients. Now, this episode is a special one because not only is Gillian an amazing leader who is thriving in her career and making an incredible impact in her industry, she is also a former client of mine. So Gillian and I did some one-on-one coaching together a few years ago, and the work really helped her ground herself in the value that she brings to the workplace and get super clear on her personal brand so that she can advocate for herself in her career and show up more authentically. Now, in this conversation, we follow her career through various industries and we touch on her experiences with leadership, both positive and negative, and how they impacted her sense of self. And we dig into the work that we did together in our coaching to bring her to the place that she is in today. I think a lot of you are going to really be able to relate to her story, from that slow creep of losing sight of yourself to coming back to yourself and thriving in your career. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, Gillian, welcome to Working Your Way. I'm excited to have you on.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, so this is going to be a fun and interesting conversation because I don't believe in any context have I ever had a former client on my show. So I'm excited to kind of hear what you have to say from a different perspective.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I'm excited to share. And I can't believe we've already known each other for what now? Almost four years, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Time flies, right? It's 2026
Yeah.
somehow.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's jump in and talk a little bit about your career. I think I know you as a marketing leader in the kind of orthodontics industry space, but where did you start your career and kind of how did you get into the industry?
Yeah. So I started my career in a completely different industry. I started out in the luxury watch and jewelry business, still in marketing, but an emphasis on the PR side. I started working for that company right out of school for the first about 5 years post college. And I thought, okay, this is fun. I had a great experience. I met some very interesting people. The luxury watch and jewelry industry is definitely a niche. It's very, it's very flashy, exciting, very luxurious, if you will. And
Yeah.
that kind of like the novelty kind of wore off after a while. I got to do some really great travel and go to some pretty big events, meet a lot of people, was going to Fashion Week in New York every year. And then I made the change and made the jump to go into the healthcare side of things in orthodontics. So I worked for a clear aligner company. And for those of you that it's just like Invisalign. I feel like when you mention orthodontic appliances or clear aligners, everyone's like, oh, you mean Invisalign? And they don't know that there are so many other brands and what they're being treated with probably is not Invisalign. But I know it's like Botox, everything else, like a household name. It's like, not everything is a Kleenex. Not all of it is Botox. Not all aligners are Invisalign. But so then I got into the dental space, and that's been it ever since. I love it.
How did you then go from like luxury watches and jewelry into orthodontics? Like, what was your first step?
Well, I think I actually missed a step in between my time at uh, with the luxury watch and jewelry company. I had a small stint in publishing. So I was selling advertising for a local chain of magazines in Columbus, Ohio. So they have the Dispatch Media Network. That was really fun. That was right when like digital marketing started to become that big boom. Social media was already, now I'm like dating myself. I mean, this was almost what, 15 years ago now. And I thought for sure, because I remember when I graduated school, I thought I want to work for Condé Nast. I want to be in the city and in Manhattan. I want to be, at the big parties. I kept thinking like the devil wears Prada, right? Like
Yeah.
working, yeah, like being a publicist for a big fashion brand. But something about publishing and, the media space really caught my attention. And I don't know what it was or why, but I couldn't have gone any differently. Like I went to school in Ohio, went to college in Dayton. I stayed in Dayton working for this company and was not in New York City. I can tell you that right now.
It's a little bit different.
It's a little bit different, but thank goodness for travel. But I finally got my break into the dental space. My husband worked for a big company called Henry Schein. They are, a massive public medical company. They've got a veterinary division, dental division. I mean, it's huge. I'm sure when you go into your dentist, there's all of the things that are in there have probably been sourced through Henry Schein. So, but I went out to an event in where I think it was in Scottsdale, and I was just a guest. They were having a symposium. They had a welcome event, and it was like I think Casino Royale themed. And of course, my husband didn't tell me that everybody was dressing up and looking the part. So I kind of roll in, coming off of another trip someplace else, and um, I was not ready for this theme party, but I started to, of course, I made my way over to talk to all the marketing. They had a big marketing team. There was this woman that was there. We just clicked. We started talking, and she was working on the event side, and they had put together this whole weekend, this symposium. No detail was missed. So I just started talking to her. We kind of hit it off. And stayed connected ever since. And I always kept thinking, and my husband would always tell me too, he's like, I just know you love this industry. I think you really have fun, the people, and I mean, just the stability, like, or dental care, orthodontic treatment, like it's not going anywhere. Retail was kind of, up and down. And I thought, okay, well, now, fast forward, I get this call from that girl. Her name is Jade. And funny story, Jade just joined my company that I'm with now. So it kind of all comes full. It kind of comes full circle. Yeah, but she reached out and she said, "Hey, I just left San Diego. I moved to Austin, Texas. I'm working for this clear aligner company, and we're building out our marketing and education team." And she said, "I would love to see if you'd be interested, but the job would require you to relocate to Austin." We were living in Columbus, Ohio. I just got married. And I was like, Austin, Texas. I was like, I don't know. Like the rest is history. I went down there. I, did a couple rounds of interviews, learned a little bit more. And then I thought, let's just go. Let's just do it. We'll go to Austin for a couple of years. And I thought, everything, it might be a short-term stint. I don't know. And God, now here we are 10 years later. And I love it.
It's so interesting to reflect back and think about like how, well, one, you've been in 4 now distinctly different industries, like very different business models, different skill sets, different types of work. And then also to think of how much some of those have changed.
Yeah, they absolutely have. And I always think, what would it have been like had I stayed with that company before coming over to the space that I'm in now, like pre-pandemic, right? Like all the office spaces closed down, retail, and they were all in different states and parts of the country with different restrictions. And it's like, it's almost hard to imagine what like work life, but also just the kind of work that we were doing pre-pandemic, especially in an industry like that.
I want to see what your, I don't know, takeaways have been going through kind of four distinctly different industries and having such different jobs. Was there anything that you took away from, those kind of early days of your process of learning, or how you got in, how you got to know the industry, how you got to know the people? Like, how did that develop for you across those kind of like first four jobs that you had?
I've had to unlearn a lot of those things from the very beginning, right? Like when I reflect and I think back about my early days, it was always, you know, you're young in your career, you don't know enough yet, you haven't kind of earned your keep, so to speak. I didn't really have a lot of confidence. I didn't have a lot of mentorship in my first definitely my first job, right? It was kind of like you graduated and you're just coming into this and you're expected to know all of this, but you're expected to constantly, be professional. So I wanted to be everything but myself.
Uh,
I always measured success by the output. So kind of the more I produce, the more I do, the better I am, and the more these people are going to see my worth, and they're going to keep, then I'll get promoted, and then I'll be able to kind of work my way. So I had to learn very fast to kind of just be professional. And when you're not certain and you're not sure of things, just don't talk, just don't speak up, don't share anything. But when I think about like professional, like when you're first out of school in that first job, you're like a sponge. You're so impressionable. And there's so much and I feel like I learned all the things from somebody that was a bit older, kind of more seasoned in their career and very black and white, straight minded, like kind of maybe not as accepting of, other opinions or a younger generation coming in to say, hey, have you thought about doing things this way? Or like this whole digital marketing thing is coming into play. We should really be doing things here, there. And it was kind of like, no, this will not be anything. We can't measure this. We don't know. So I kind of thought, okay, well, my place is just to conform and produce and come in and do the job. And I didn't feel like really connected, or I didn't feel like what I was doing was very meaningful.
I'm curious about like at what point, did you go from this kind of learned way of being of like, I just need to put my head down and produce and do what I'm told, to like where you are now? Like, where did that change start to happen?
I would say it started to change like right before the pandemic. Um, I was working, this was, gosh, maybe two companies before where I am now. And that's where I had a phenomenal mentor. I still think about him to this day. I still talk to him, keep in touch. He was the first person that kind of gave me the confidence and told me, be yourself, don't change. Like I
Mm.
see you out here working. I want you to speak up more. I know you have really good ideas in there and I want to hear about them. We should talk about your progression plans, your leadership. Like he started putting me in front of the right people. And that was a turning point for me because I had never had that before. It was always
Okay.
leadership that felt superior, but it was their way. And it was kind of like produce, kind of be quiet, show up, don't show emotion, don't get overly like, and I'm a very passionate person. Like if I'm a people person, I'm very passionate about what I do and the companies that I work for, and I'm extremely loyal. That's just me. And I'm like that in my personal life and my professional life. And it's really hard to turn that off. And this mentor that I had when I was working at the company was called Clear Correct. And when I was there, I felt like for the first time, I started to be able to be myself when I would show up. I didn't always start that way, not until this leadership kind of came in. I got to meet the president of the North Americas. And I remember I was a little intimidated. I was a little nervous. I was
Yeah.
still like not fully in. I wasn't, where I am now. And I remember we left the room and my boss had said to me, why weren't you speaking up more? I know because I've talked to you about these things one-on-one. And he said, this is your chance in front of, Rob to talk about these things and share this. And I still had a little bit of that imposter syndrome. Like, I don't want to sound stupid. I don't want to sound, and I was predominantly at a table with all men. So, older men. And it's not like nobody ever, blatantly made me feel any way, but it's like, you know, there was two females in the room, maybe three, in a whole conference room. So I didn't always feel comfortable, but I started to kind of think in a different way after this mentor really, really, encouraged me to kind of unlearn and step out and just be myself, because that's what's going to get me, you know, to where I want to go.
It almost seems there's like two kind of parts to that. One is like, I don't know whether it's an aha moment or a realization or just like having your mentor kind of like state this to you to say, we actually like want your ideas. We want you to push back or, bring things to the table or whatever. So like understanding that, or like a mental reframe of like, oh no, they don't want me to just do what I'm told, like that shift. And then there's the part that comes after that. That's like, okay, now that I know that and I can internalize that, it's like building up the confidence or feeling comfortable in a room to do that. Okay, I want to pause here for a second because this is such a common experience. We come into the work world early in our careers and we absorb a lot, whether that's learning the context clues of work culture or learning the ways that we think we need to be in order to succeed. So it's important to really stop at different moments in our career and ask ourselves, what messages did we receive about success, leadership, or our value at work simply because of the industry that we were in or the managers that we happened to have? Now, maybe you learned that speaking up was risky, or maybe you were rewarded for having all the answers instead of asking questions that you really needed to ask. Or maybe you got the message that your role was just to be there to execute and not to influence or think. Or that certain voices mattered more than others. The thing is, we often don't realize that these messages are really shaping the way that we think over time. They kind of become the water that we're swimming in. We can't see it. And so we assume that that is just how work works. And then sometimes one person changes everything, or an experience changes everything. And for Gillian, that experience was a person, the manager that she mentioned here. She describes having a leader who genuinely wanted her ideas, who sought out her perspective, and who treated her opinions as valuable from the very beginning. And it wasn't performative. It was a real belief that she had something meaningful to contribute and that there were people who wanted to hear it. Now, that experience became a catalyst for her to challenge the assumptions that she had absorbed and to show her a different way of leading and being led. And that's often how unlearning begins. Not through a book or a training program, but through an experience that makes you question a story that you've been carrying for years. So as you listen to this conversation and think about your own career, I wonder for you, what messages did you inherit? Which ones have served you? And which ones might be ready to be left behind? Okay, as we get back into the conversation, Gillian shares more about what it looked like to shift and unlearn after she had this new awareness about how she gets to show up more fully at work.
I remember the first couple of times when I had to present in front of, the leadership group or prepare stuff for the executive leadership team meetings that I wasn't in, but I know my name would be on the materials that are being presented. And my mentor always did a phenomenal job of giving credit where it's due. So if there was something that was asked of me where I wouldn't be in the room presenting some of my work or ideas or things, that I would still get the credit. But I remember that the most because it had such an impact, because I remember how scared or maybe scared isn't the word, just I guess anxious and a little bit kind of worried, oh, this person put all this trust in me. This team is putting all of this trust in me and they're lifting me up. I don't want to disappoint, or I don't want to say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing. So I think there was this bit of fear. But once I started doing it and I started being able to, what I felt like was kind of earning my keep at the table, it was such an incredible feeling. And it was such a, it, it was more rewarding in the doing than it was somebody kind of opening up that door to tell me, we want more from you. We believe in you. We think that you have a very bright future at this company. To hear that was one thing, and it made me go to that next level in my with myself, but then doing it and being able to like act on it and show my worth, but feel my worth was that was a whole different feeling, and that will stick with me forever.
You had a new opportunity come along. So what was that next step like, and what happened during that chapter of your career?
The end of 2020, this opportunity came around. There was a startup company in the ortho space, telehealth platform software. So moving away from, like a fixed, ortho appliances, more to like the technology SaaS side of things. And they were looking for a marketing leader to come build the brand and take everything. They had just raised they were just closing their seed round. So I thought, okay, and I met with the founders, the company, and everything just clicked. And I thought, what an incredible, this is where the future of healthcare is going. This is where, especially dental, right? Like every other healthcare vertical has the virtual part of it. It has the telehealth part, but dental. And I remember talking to my husband, and they had partnerships with Henry Schein and 3M. And I thought, okay, I'm kind of quote unquote dreaming. So my Strawman, we always did, are you a doer, thinker, dreamer? I forget what the fourth was, but I was always a doer and a dreamer. And I remember when I was leaving, I thought I'm ready to do the work, but I'm really dreaming because this can be something huge. But I didn't have any experience in building a brand from scratch. I didn't have any experience. Like when I came into ClearCorrect, it was already built. It was already established. It was known in the marketplace. People knew the name. They knew about, clear aligner treatment. This was something brand new, but it was exciting. And I kind of got to go in and lay the foundation and the groundwork. And I had no idea it would have been that pivotal and that rewarding to kind of build that brand and see it grow, see it flourish, and knowing that I did it pretty much myself, because going through the ebbs and flows of startup, there was constantly rifts. We started out, okay, marketing at its peak, maybe had 3 to 4 people, and it was back down, but I was always the constant and kind of there since the beginning. I was the third employee in the US. And I just remember thinking I had such a sense of kind of like ownership and pride. And while I was not a founder in the sense of my name's not on the company, not on the patents or anything, but I still felt like I kind of was in a way.
Yeah. And so you basically built this brand from the ground up into something that became really known in the industry, right?
I was the first. I remember before I even started, or right when I started, we didn't have a sales organization, so it was just ops, marketing, obviously our engineers and developers, and everybody that's building the platform and building the app and all that. But there was no sales force. So the first 50 customers that came on board, I am not I'm good at building relationships, and if I believe in the product, I can articulate the features, benefits, whatever, but I'm not a closer. I'm not a seller in that sense.
Yeah.
And I remember the first 50 customers that came on board, I had brought them on board, but I thought, okay, well, I came on to do marketing. I'm kind of doing a little bit, but it's startup. So literally you wear several different hats. You'll do anything, and you just get the brand off the ground. And yeah, I came on before there was just couple of customers and then, hundreds and, doing almost 5 million in ARR starting from zero. I mean, and then building the partnerships and going to major trade shows and, showcasing at the American Association of Orthodontics, their conference every year, which is like has, global traction. It's not just US doctors and winning awards. And oh gosh, there's just was so many moments and so many high points when I think about God. And little did they know it was just me during a pandemic working in my guest room and like just trying to figure out, and then kind of taking this to market, and then it just took off. And that was, I was learning as I went. I knew what I was doing from a marketing perspective, but there were so many things that you have to learn, you have to
Figure
teach
out along
yourself,
the
and
way.
just figure it out. And it's like trial and error, right? You have to test. You don't know we don't have any historical data to go off of or any data to measure the campaigns or the effectiveness. And it's really hard in the initial stages when you're building a brand because your budget is small. And how do you measure brand awareness?
Yeah.
It was really hard, but very, very rewarding.
Yeah. And of course, like looking back, you can see like this thing that you built and feel really proud of it and even impressed at all of what you did. But I'm curious, like as you were in it, were you aware of like how much progress you had made? What was that like for you?
Yeah. No, I wasn't. And I think I still kept wanting to do more. And that old mentality of I'm not doing enough or I'm not producing enough. I'm not giving enough output, or I'm not like every week over week, like, okay, well, what did I create? What did I build? What kind of trying to reinforce my worth through performance and through constant like out like production producing. It's hard. I mean, I was the only person in marketing for a good chunk of my time there, so you're an independent department, an independent contributor, but also too you've got the weight of everything on you. And I felt like some old habits and old beliefs started coming back in again. And I'll be honest, there was a point in time where I felt like I I kept thinking, I can't do this. I don't think I'm going to be able to. This is never going to be successful. It's like an uphill battle. I'm trying everything I can, but um, I just I really didn't think that I was doing enough. I didn't ever
Uh-huh.
stepped back to think, oh, okay, I thought, oh God, I could always be doing more. I could always be doing better.
So as you were talking about um, not being able to like do enough or not feeling like you were doing enough, I mean, I can imagine I've been in these environments and startups where there's a mountain of stuff to do and you are one person, right? Like there's no way that you could do everything on the to-do list and with such limited resources. And I feel like in a startup in particular, but also one where you're almost like creating a new category, you were like in
Yes.
a different space, right? A lot of education was required, even just like figuring out the business model. There needs to be room for trial and error and things like that too. So I just was like wondering about that for you as you were trying things and doing things, and like not everything is gonna work. Not every investment's
Mhm.
gonna work. Not every like tool or asset or thing that you create is gonna work. And I feel like that probably contributed a bit too to not feeling like you were doing enough.
Yes. Yeah, it absolutely did. And I felt like it was at times the saying, sometimes I like cringe when I hear it, but it is true. Like you're not able to see the forest through the trees. Like my to-do list, all the things that needed to get done. And we were bringing on, growing out the sales organization. So a little bit of that sales enablement play coming in, right? Like you have people that are out there selling the product that need, you know, it's not just about building these experiences and the events and all of this. It's like, okay, well, we need just the fundamentals to be able to go out and
Mhm.
sell this. So it's like my to-do list, and I'd be working like crazy. I mean, I just never stopped. I never turned off. It almost kind of became a little bit obsessive in a way. It's if I still had stuff that I needed to do, or that I thought, oh, I have to get this done, or I have to deliver this, I have to do that. I'm one person. So the list, there's nobody else to delegate to. And yes,
Yeah.
I work with agencies and other partners and things, but
You still have
it's
to touch
very,
everything.
yes. And somebody has to manage those partnerships and those vendors
Yeah.
and those people. And sometimes that's another full-time job in itself. So, um, yeah, it was definitely hard to kind of where's the balance, right? Because how can I turn my brain to be thinking strategically and okay, making sound decisions to test
Right.
things, and then be the executor, and then also have to measure and figure it out. It's like it's a lot of pressure. And in the startup space, you're up against the clock. Time is of the essence, and especially in our space. So it's you're just constantly stretched thin and just pushed.
One of the things I see so often in my work is that people don't wake up one day just completely disconnected from themselves. It happens gradually, a little compromise here, a little adaptation there. You take on more responsibility. You become the person that everyone can count on. You focus on meeting expectations and delivering results and keeping things moving. And for a while, all of that can look like success. It can lead you to success. But underneath it, something else may be happening. You can slowly lose sight of your natural talents because you're so focused on what's needed. You can become disconnected from your own values because you're responding to everyone else's priorities. And you can even start measuring your worth by what you accomplish rather than who you are. And when that's being measured against what's valued at a particular company or by a particular leader, it can really be biased and harmful to our sense of self. The challenging part is that this process is often visible to us only after the fact. It's really invisible while it's happening, this slow creep. So many of the behaviors that create disconnection are the exact things that get rewarded in our careers. They lead to performance, reliability, achievement, adaptability, until eventually you hit a moment where something feels really off. And maybe it's burnout. Maybe it's dissatisfaction despite the success you're experiencing. Maybe it's a growing sense that you've become disconnected from parts of yourself that once felt really vibrant and alive and energizing. And that moment can be really unsettling, but it can also be a really needed wake-up call. So as we get back into the conversation, Gillian shares what that moment of realization looked like for her and the decision that she made to begin reconnecting with who she was beyond the specifics of her workplace demands and the environment that she was in. And I think it was like around this time or maybe a little bit later that you and I started to work together. And I am wondering, like, what was the catalyst for you to be like, this isn't sustainable, or I don't want it to be this way, or it doesn't need to be this way, or let me seek out some like additional resources to make a change. Like, what was the pivot point for you to go and do something differently?
Yeah. I actually remember it like to the day. So I had been thinking
Really?
about yeah, I remember I was actually, when I reached out to the person that had connected us, I was in the parking lot picking up a pizza for my daughter. I was super pregnant, getting ready to go out on maternity leave. And I thought, I don't want to come back and feel like this anymore, because I'm going to have two kids, two and under, and working in this way. Um, and I couldn't figure out what I was missing. And I kept thinking, maybe and this is not to say anything like a startup. You don't go in a startup to be mentored and to be coached. And you don't have that, like, nobody has the time. We're all just kind of fighting to keep the lights on and keep things moving, and just to like first 5 years of a startup, it's like, that's kind of critical. So, and I knew that, but I was missing some piece of it that was self-development, right? Like I was losing a little bit of my confidence. I was doubting myself, and I wasn't able to. I felt like there was a point where I had done all this stuff, and I had people telling me, like, oh my God, there's only one person in that marketing team. I saw your booth here or this and that. And I'm seeing this all over in the press, and your founders are on these like everything was blowing up. But I kept thinking to myself, like, I didn't feel the connection to the success. I kind of felt like I was I was losing myself. I didn't have the confidence, no matter how much work, no matter how much success had been done. I still was kind of like, how do I get back to where I was? Because I felt like I was losing that. And I couldn't figure out why. So I had been connected to you, and then I think we started our work together. Gosh, I think maybe a couple of months after I came back to work full time from having my second daughter. And I just knew, like, either I have to figure something out here and like get somebody to help me get out of this. Is this burnout? Is this or yeah, like I just need some professional leadership help, development. I need somebody to like help me understand my self-worth again, and help me advocate for myself, and take better care of myself, and you know, ask for what just knowing my worth and being able to articulate that. Like I I couldn't even tell you that before we did our work together. And then after, I it was like a new door opened for me, and it was a completely different. I felt like that was a pivotal moment in my career trajectory, because for once in my life I could actually talk about I could understand my worth, and I was back to kind of being myself again, and try, coming into preparing myself for a bigger role in leadership, and learning how to just lead in my own authentic way.
I loved the work that we did together. And it is one of those things where it was so clear to me, so obvious to me, like how incredible you were and how capable you were and how much you had built in this company that you were working in, that I was like, oh, this is obvious. Like, yeah, you should see it too, And so like just working through that, I think a couple of the things, and I'd love to hear a little bit about like what you felt like was really helpful in our experience working together. I know we did some work around, values and strengths. And also like what's interesting is that moment that you had in the parking lot, right? Picking up the pizza there was this like juxtaposition between like the feedback you were getting from people about how amazing, your work has been and your contributions, and the feeling that you had internally of like not recognizing that. One of the exercises that we did together, and I've talked about this on the podcast before, was like the reflected best self exercise, where other people are telling stories about you and talking about you at your best and what you've done. And in a way that almost mirrors, it mirrors kind of one of the reasons that you decided you wanted to change something in the first place. Cause it's like, all these people see this thing and I'm maybe not connected to that. And so how do we like do that in a more tangible way?
Yeah. That was by far one of the most incredible experiences that I could have had. And it came at it was almost serendipitous, right? Because I was at my lowest point personally, professionally. I was burned out. I had just lost my mom a couple of months prior, unexpectedly had my daughter going through in the moment, you don't recognize that it's postpartum, right? Because it's just like, okay, get back to work, go, 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 keep busy. My husband was traveling all the time. And I remember being at like one of my lowest points and then going through the work that we did together. And that exercise in particular, I mean, I know you weren't met like I almost thought of this as like therapy for my whole self in a weird way. Like I came to you to help me be a better leader, understand my strengths, be a better, you know, kind of figure out who I am and where my career is going. But that whole exercise brought me back to it almost brought me back to life in a very weird way. I remember reading all of the responses on that Saturday morning by myself because you instructed, hey, go someplace quiet and just reflect on all of this. And I remember thinking, wow, I everybody needs to do that 100%. And I just think that was it. That was a turning point in where I decided, like, I get to control where I go next. I get to control how I feel. I get to control how I lead. You reinstilled that, like, I'm in control, not my employer, not this brand, not this company, not the founders. Um, it's me. And I think finally I made that connection. And it's funny too, because I tell this to a lot of people. I was like, God, where am I going to go if I ever left this company? I built, like, I love this brand. I love what it stands for. I love everything about it. And I kept talking about the company, the brand. And then I kind of made that realization, especially after the work with you, like, it's you. It's not the company. It's not the brand. You built that. You can go do that anywhere you want to now. You can go take that and go do that anywhere. And that was so profound because I kept thinking, oh, I could never do this again because this is the brand. But like, no, it's the people that are behind the company and the brand that build it.
I mean, it was never about the brand, right? If you're the one that built the brand, right? It's about you.
Yeah.
So.
I know.
Yeah.
It's an attachment. And I think I had to, like, in a weird way, be kind of weaned off of the attachment, but I didn't know how or where to start. And I feel like our work together was the starting point, the tipping point, but it's that's where I started to take control back. And I know that I had a phenomenal run. I was still there, right? Even after our work together. But a lot of those things that we did together about, my leadership style, my communication style, figuring out like the Enneagram. Like, I didn't know what type I was or where I fell or who I work at. Like, that just changed. I think it just changed my trajectory completely for my career.
Well, thank you for saying that. I mean, I think it was like such a cool process to go through together to like have you really emerge from that, couple of months that we worked together, being super grounded in like how amazing you are, how capable you are, right? All the things that you had accomplished. And then I think, one of the things that I love about the work that I do with clients is being able to put language to and articulate clearly, right? And specifically the things that make you like uniquely you, right? Or uniquely like valuable in your career or whatever, however you want to say it. As Gillian very graciously shared, doing the deep work to understand herself and put her words to the talents and the values that she had and really ground herself in her own unique value changed so much for her. And this is the work that I most love to do when I'm working one-on-one with clients. It's really a self-discovery journey. And then really articulating what you've learned or become aware of in a way that you and others can really see it clearly. Now, one of the ways that we went about this was helping Gillian see herself through fresh eyes. And we leveraged the perspectives of the people that knew her best to help us out here. And this can seem a little contradictory because it's really about self-discovery, but then we're relying on the opinions of others. But the thing is, when we're inside of our own experience, we can often discount the very things that make us exceptional. These are skills that feel effortless to us, or they're the things that we often overlook because we assume everybody does that well. And the answer is usually no, not everybody does it well. You do it really well. And it's easy for you. So you don't maybe recognize it as a unique talent. So this part of our work together involved gathering reflections from people who knew and worked with her best through the RBSE, which is the Reflected Best Self exercise. And we really looked for patterns and themes and applications around the talents that emerged from the stories that people shared. What strengths did others consistently see? What impact did they experience when they worked with her? What contributions showed up again and again across different roles, teams, and chapters of her career? Or what contributions showed up again and again, even outside of work? And what emerged wasn't necessarily brand new information, but it was a new perspective on information that had been there all along, but was hard to see. And then came the next important step, getting more specific, because clarity isn't just about identifying what you're good at. It's about editing and getting really granular. It's about being willing to say, yes, I can do that, but I don't really enjoy it. Or I've been successful at that in the past, but it's not where I create the most value. Or I do this thing really amazingly well, but specifically in this context is where it really thrives. So that level of specificity maybe can feel a little limiting at first, but it's actually really liberating, because once you know who you are and what you bring in the environments where you do your best work, you have a much stronger filter for making decisions. So as we return to the conversation, Gillian shares what this process of clarity gave her in practical terms and how it helped her evaluate opportunities, to recognize alignment, and ultimately choose a next chapter that was a much better fit for who she truly is. You mentioned a couple of things you kind of like came out of the process with around like understanding yourself better, how you work, and those things, and like naming those things. But yeah, what was the outcome of that work? In maybe in tangible terms, like what were a couple of things that were most helpful?
I remember before our work together, if you were to ask me, like, what are you really good at? What do you love to do? If you had to write a brand statement about yourself, something as simple as that, I couldn't do. And I knew there were so many things, right? You think about all the stuff, but at the end of the day, what are you really good at? And how can you articulate that and have conversations? And how are you able to almost in a way, like talk about yourself, pitch yourself? Like, what's your elevator pitch? What's your brand statement? And I kept thinking, well, I've done so much. I don't even know how to put this articulated and put it into words. And by the end, when I wrote my, what it's like your personal brand statement, like what you're, who you are and what you do really well. And I kept thinking, God, I've got to be good at, everything, and I've got to fit this all in there. How do I articulate, but how do you make it effective, and how do you give that to people, especially as like you're on the job market, you're looking for something else. But it taught me how to also on the flip articulate my strengths, my passions, what I'm really good at, but also too, what do you really love to do? What makes you tick? What makes you feel like showing up every day? You could be good at 8 things, but do you love all 8? Probably not. Like, I'm good at things that I don't necessarily enjoy. But kind of narrowing that down and being selective and being able to talk about yourself in that way, but also as you're out there looking at new opportunities or talking to recruiters or other people that are coming along with different opportunities, it gave me a better sense of what am I best fit to do? Where am I able to go and take myself and be my authentic self? Does my authentic passions, leadership style, is it going to fit here? And if it doesn't, I would know, because there are other things that I've passed up in between because I knew, no, I, just because it's a big step up and it'll be a big increase in my compensation, I'm just not going to jump at that because it doesn't align with me. It doesn't align with what I'm looking for and, what I want to do.
Yeah. I love that. I think, I think about it as like using or creating a filter for what is the
Yeah.
right opportunity, right? And when we think about career alignment, it's like not only what you can do, right? Because I think most of my clients are incredibly capable people. And it's like, you could do a lot of things. And how do you put
Yeah.
your unique talents to work in a way that's going to launch you into the place that you want to be? Like doing work that feels purposeful, where you're contributing, where you're appreciated and valued, and all the things. And so you now have been in your current role for how long has it been?
Almost 6 months. Yeah.
Yeah, it like feels very much like you're thriving in this new opportunity. And so I'm curious about one, I want to talk about like what it's like to kind of like show up authentically. But before that, how did you then kind of use this new knowledge about yourself and kind of like maybe a renewed sense of self, we'll call it, to pivot into a new, way more aligned opportunity?
I felt like confidence was a huge piece of it, right? Like I wasn't running from something to something. I wasn't running away from
Mhm.
something. I was seeing this as an opportunity, like being able to have those open, direct conversations throughout the process. Because this other company had been approached me a year and a half ago. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to make the change. Um, and I kept thinking, oh no, I'm gonna stay. I'm gonna see this through. Like I'm so invested in this and I want this to work and all the things. And then I remember when I reconnected in the fall, um, I was able to ask very direct questions to get to what I needed, like cut through the fluff. You know what I mean? Like I was able to be very um, get the information that I needed because I understood what I need, what I need personally, what I need financially, what I need to be fulfilled in the kind of work that I'm doing. What am I going to be doing? What is the team like? Kind of evaluating the opportunity for the alignment. And I feel like previously I might not have had the right skills, like from a communication perspective, but also too from like identifying things. I now know, okay, so if they're telling me this is kind of what the job is going to entail. Okay, great. You could tell somebody breakdown of their role, this is what's going to be, but like I was able to ask more um, direct questions and they were extremely honest. Like I'm in another startup company, but it's not startup like I was. But I want to know. I want honest answers, and I'm going to ask the questions. I, like, show me. I want to know about the cash flow. I want to know about um, all the things because, like, being in a startup space is very risky, right? And if I learned one thing, it's you need to like you have to know your worth and understand. Like, had I not known what I was capable of doing, like I know coming to this company what I'm going to bring, they were very clear in the company's goals. They were very clear in what they needed. And I was able to say, oh, I have full confidence. I can come in and build this brand, achieve X in ARR by the end of the year, help drive that forward. And I know that I have the right resources, the right team, a strong budget. The company is extremely stable, profitable. I just had like all the transparency, and that really gave me the confidence like, okay, this is the right decision. This is where I see
Mm.
myself going. And I feel like it's very much an environment and a place where I can be myself and I'm accepted and I never have to turn on and turn off. I don't have to worry about, oh, well, if I lead like this, it's not kind of following. Am I going to seem too soft? Oh, I was told that I need to be really aggressive. I need to be, standing my ground. I need to, if I appear this way, they're going to see me as weak. and just all of those different things in your head, right? Like of how you have to be, where it's like, I just show up and I've got my seat at the table and they I've been valued since day one. Like no decision will be made about your department, about your work or anything without you. Um, hey, I want to bring you into these meetings and these calls. It might not be marketing related, it might not be related to your seat, but I really value your past and your experience and also your point of view and how you approach things, not just from a leadership perspective, but hey, we're building out on the product side. I would love to get your opinion and feedback. What do you think we need to look for in this kind of a role and that? And I'm like, oh, wow, they actually like really value me. They're coming to me. And it's not an afterthought. It's you know, coming to you in the foundational stages. It's like, okay, that's you know, makes you feel very secure and it makes you feel uh, valued. And I didn't understand, previously for like the last 4 to 5 years, how changing your environment affects your overall self and changing your environment. Like it's absolutely critical.
Yeah. It's like you were able to come in knowing your worth, asking the questions, having the confidence to like show up and be like, this is what I need. This is what I'm good at. Is this a good fit? Right. Versus like, okay, well, I can do that. Or that's what, like all of those things. And
Yeah.
then you came into this environment where they see you like really fully. Right. And what is it like for you? Obviously like feeling valued, but like as I'm thinking about this and you were saying, like you don't have to kind of turn on and turn off or being kind of like kept behind the curtain a little bit or, having to question those things or not being asked your opinion or having decisions made for you that impact your business, but that you don't get to be a part, like all of those things, like it feels like they add up from to a big amount of like energy expenditure that you're not having to like waste anymore. Like that was the impression that I got too of like I can just show up and be me and say my opinion and I'm not like, kind of like spending all this energy like questioning or holding things back or wondering.
Yeah. Or constantly like kind of being, oh, well, oh, you're a little bit more emotional about this, or there's that. Like I'm never judged, never questioned, and never like there was always a lot of observations about me and about
Yeah.
my what I'm doing. But here it's just like, oh no, I trust you. Just go ahead and do that. Or I'm on board with whatever you think. Just raise your hand if you need resources or help or whatever you need. But I do feel like I don't have the stress. I don't have okay, I'm trying to do X, Y, and Z, but at the end of the day, I have to constantly remind myself to act or be a certain way or do it the way that this person wants or do it how they think it's right versus what I know in my day to day is the right way to go about it. But but also too worrying about constantly reinstating my value and communicating and like I always felt like I had to make it known. I always had to show my worth and show my value, but here they already know it. So it's like that whole level, it's like we're all in the same playing ground. Let's just get to work. Because that's what I want to do at the end of the day, right? We all do. We're coming here to do a job. And we don't want to deal with all the other, excuse my like, but all the other BS of like
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. It just takes away from everything that you're there to do, right? And what you can do. And so what are you most excited about business wise coming up in your current role?
yeah. There's a lot of exciting things coming up, but one right now that's taking a lot of my team's focus and our energy is our growth summit. So we put on a big symposium, summit, whatever you want to call it, in October, where we're going to have, over 500 doctors and their teams. So we encourage this. We encourage our clinicians, like the dentists. Hey, bring your whole practice. We're going to have 2 full days in Cleveland, downtown. We've rented out a hotel. We're going to have a whole 2 days full of professional growth, business growth, clinical growth, like all kinds of topics, amazing keynote speaker presentations. We're going to have a huge event at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And there's just so much that goes into it. But I love, curating brand experiences and something where our customers can come together. And it's not just an event, right? Like, we're trying to create a feeling for all of our customers to come together, whether you're currently using or you're interested and you want to come and find out. So that's something pretty big that we're planning for. Last year was the first year they did it before I was on board. So this is the second year. And we've got some pretty aggressive but attainable goals that are going to come along with it. And we're going to make it bigger and better and just this will be our flagship event every year. And so it's really exciting to work on stuff like that.
That sounds like a perfect use of all your talents to be put to work. So
yeah. So we're very excited.
That's great. Well, I'm going to kind of wrap us up here, and I'm just curious, like, what is next for you from a development standpoint of professional growth, or how you're thinking about your own growth?
I'm absolutely practicing more work-life balance. So while I'm always a doer, a worker, and I'm always dedicated, what am I? I'm a type 3, so a productive producer. I can never
achiever, producer, all the things. That's all the things. Performing, yeah,
all the things. I'm gonna practice more, work-life balance and trying to do more things for myself. So maybe it's not necessarily, more professional development work at this point right now. Definitely taking better care of myself. And I say that, but actually I'm leaving on Sunday night to go to New Jersey to do this heroic public speaking course, because I really want to, as part of my my journey and professional development, I really want to get into more opportunities to like mentor, speak, or, if maybe what I've gone through in my professional journey, personal journey can lift somebody else, or if I can, share some things that have worked for me on a larger scale, especially building in the startup space and building a brand and how to, overcome some of the things that I have. I would love an opportunity like that. So being on this podcast with you is like really the first. So I really want to get into more of that. So I'm going to a heroic public speaking course, but it does so much more than that. So
yeah, I have been through something similar, and yeah, I can say that you will leave like both with a lot of professional growth, but a lot of personal growth too, and just an opportunity to think about your experience in a different way and practice some new skills and build some new muscles. So I love that. So I think more visibility and sharing your story more, and balance and maybe a little more rest and a little more, fulfillment outside of work. So I support both of those things.
Thank you. Yes, I definitely need to do take up a little bit more hobbies and do some things for myself. So I'm working on that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on. It was great to kind of reflect back and hear more about some of the chapters of your career that I didn't know about or hadn't had a chance to talk with you about. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Sandhya. It was great to be on, and I can't recommend everything that you did for me enough. And it's been a pleasure to keep our relationship going, and maybe do some more work together in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope you enjoyed and got a lot out of that conversation. Now, as Gillian got super clear on her talents, her values, and what she's really exceptional at, And what really matters to her, she was able to use these things as a filter for exploring different career opportunities. The important takeaway here is that sustainable career success isn't just about capability, but it's about fit. Anyone can be successful for a period of time in an environment that isn't well suited for them, but it can lead to burnout or worse. When you find that right fit between what you're good at and what's needed, you can really build that longevity of both success and well-being. The people we work with, the culture we're in, and what gets rewarded can either amplify our strengths or pull us away from them. And that's why self-awareness and self-advocacy is so important. Now, before we can find the right fit, we need that clarity about what we do best and what energizes us and where we create the most value and what conditions really help us thrive. We need to be able to distinguish between I can do that, and that's how I do my best work. That was a really key takeaway from Gillian's journey, and the result wasn't a complete reinvention. It was a better match between who she already knew she was and where she chose to work. And that's what alignment really is. It's knowing yourself well enough to advocate for what works for you and finding an environment that values what you bring to the table. We'll link the information about the specific exercise that we talked about, the reflected best self exercise, in the show notes. And this is something that you can do alone or with a coach or in a group or in a workshop at your company or for a networking organization. And if having this type of tool facilitated for you is of interest to you, of course, please feel free to reach out to me at hello@selfatwork.com and we can chat. Now, you can also check out an episode that I did with my friend, fellow entrepreneur and coach, Shireen Sater, on the RBSE tool, where we talk about what it is and how we each use it in our own work lives, so you can get a really personal perspective from each of us. That is episode 72, which is part of my Tools to Work Your Way series, and we'll put that in the show notes as well. Thank you so much for being here. If you'd like this episode of Working Your Way, be sure to follow or subscribe so you'll always catch the latest. If you want to bring these kinds of conversations into your workplace, check out selfatwork.com to learn more about my team coaching, Enneagram workshops, keynote speaking, and other ways that we can work together. And to find detailed show notes, explore all the resources from all the episodes and all other things working your way, head to selfatwork.com/podcast. We'll see you next time.